So welcome to this video. This video is going to be called Creation by Numbers. In the Powers of Nine, I go through a few creation stories, creation by number stories, and that was kind of how it evolved in my understanding of it. In this now, I'm not going to give as much details on some of the elements, but I'm going to try and bring it together in its more evolved form, but also try to keep it a bit more simple for the video. So, in the beginning, there was nothing. There was a big zero. But what is this big zero? This is a mass of vibrating energy. This is a circuit. It's energy vibrating. So sound, energy, vibration. In the beginning was the word, the sound, energy. And at some point, this big whirling, vibrating mass of energy broke. There was an evolution. There was an evolutionary jump, evolutionary stage. And this now represented a stream of energy which at some point, because of the break, turned back onto itself and created what we now know as the Nine. So within this big mass of energy, the Nine was created. I'll come back to what I've just drawn there in 1 second. So now let's try to keep this grounded and practical, in fact. So what are we actually dealing with here? I mean, as above, so below, different levels to work with as ever, but on a more personal, spiritual path perspective, when I'm on the zero and I'm flying around energetically in a circle, what I'm generally trapped in ego mind or just caught up in all the day-to-day activities, and I'm generally flying around caught up in mental streams of consciousness, and at a certain moment I go and I come back to myself. I kind of wake up from this cycling of thoughts and I become more present, more self-aware. If I'm practicing well, I'll breathe, I'll be aware of my body, my feelings, my mind, be aware of the environment around me, and then I'll probably get caught back up in the cycle of thoughts. But the point is, it's an evolutionary step when we learn to break the cycle and turn back in self-awareness. So this is the Nine. But before it could happen on a personal level, because we're not created yet, it had to also happen on the bigger level, the universal level, and that was how the Nine was created. Now, in some way, if the Nine's created, is the Six created? Because that is just turning the Nine on its head. An upside down Nine is a Six, and as people who are aware of the Powers of Nine teaching, one of the key aspects in the Power of Nine is that the energy needs to be turned back down. We need to become self-aware, and in that process we go through what initially would be a rebirthing experience, but later, with more, once we've had the rebirth experience sufficiently, then it just becomes a returning of channeling of the energy back down through the spine, and then the opening of the heart. So that can also be the symbolism, but also I drew in the Nine here to show it a bit more as a yin yang, to show that also maybe the fact that the Nine's created is also means that the Six is created at the same time, because it all is birthed out of that circle. Also, circle, energy, egg, sperm, egg and sperm together perhaps create the Six. I don't know too much. Now, what happened next? So we're going to say that we've got the 9 and we've got the 6. They're the first step of creation. In the beginning was the Word, the voice of God, and God said, sound, speaking, vibration, energy, circuit of energy. And God said, let there be light, the light of self-awareness, self-consciousness, the capacity to be able to turn back in upon ourselves, to be self-aware. So the 9 at the top of our creation at the moment, the 9 also then breaks down. Now, I don't know much, I'm not musical, I don't have a lot of competence around music, so I'll say this quick and hope that I'm not talking rubbish. But I think one of the ideal music harmonies is the third and the 2/3. And so we are still talking about resonating, vibrating energy. Like that was the circuit of vibrating energy. If I stick an M there, that gives us the Om. So is that representing the universal energy? And so the 9 broke down into this ideal harmonic, which was 1/3 and 2/3. And when we break it down, 9 into 2/3 and 1/3, we get the 3 as 1/3 and we get the 6 as 2/3. So just like the 0 was the universal energy, vibrating and humming and doing all that, and then 9 became the self-conscious self-awareness. So the 3 and the 6 are like the next generation, and the 3 was self-consciousness in the manifest, which was able to manifest and start what we would call creation. These guys are above the manifest world, they're in the ultimate reality, and the 6 is the universal energy, but in the manifest form. So these guys are now ready to do something serious. So if that was the Word of God and this was the light, maybe this is the heavens and the earth. I write about it in the book, and I've thought about it there and I've put it down. I can't remember exactly. Now, like its forefather, the manifest consciousness, like this forefather, the universal consciousness, also broke down into the perfect harmonies of 1/3 and 2/3, and that gave a 2, which was the 2/3, and the 1, which was 1/3. Now in this next generation, the 6 doesn't alter itself, it rests as it was. For people also following with the planes of existence, just to be aware that if I put in the father figure of the 9 here, the 2 and the 1 are simply the breakdown of the 3, and then we've got the 6. 9,216 is the number of years that we will spend in the plane 11 of the 31 planes of existence. Controllers of others' creations is the name of that plane. So take out the 9 again, and what happened was that these figures now were ready to start the actual creation of the manifest world. So when they came down, we could look at this and it could be the universe, the entire sphere of the universe. It could be the sphere of the time-space continuum, whatever that is, if that's not the universe. It could be the sphere of Earth or another planet, or it could also be on a very individualized level. It could also be the actual energetic sphere that I proposed that we all are. And so when these numbers, the 2, 1 and the 6, came down and started creating, the 1 and the 2 came down and rested at the top of the sphere, whilst the 6 transcended the entire sphere and came to rest at the bottom here, coiled at the very base. In terms of the personal sphere that we are, this is the Kundalini serpent coiled up at the base chakra, which is the universal, the manifest version of universal energy. So that part of us which is correlates to the universal energy, coiled at the base chakra, are waiting to be set free, waiting to be unleashed. Now, at the top of the sphere there, the 1 and the 2 are ready to start the creative process to create all the other elements that we have in the manifest world. So to do that, the 1 was divided into by the 2. And when we divide 1 by 2, we get 0.5. If we calculate this numerologically for the root number, 0 plus 5 is 5, so it's the number 5 is the root number. And this in terms of fractions is a half. So now we have the 0.5. Do this and go into red. The 0.5 was also divided into by the 2. When this happened, the result was 0.25. When we add up this for the numerological root number of the 0.25, 2 plus 5 equals 7. We get 7, and this is the quarter. The 0.25 then also was divided into by the 2, and this gave us the answer, the result of 0.125. Adding these numbers together, we get an 8, and this is also an eighth. We're going to keep going. 0.125 divided by the 2 equals 0.06. I need to peek on this one. 25. Add these numbers together. 0.0625. We get 13. 1 plus 3 equals 4. So it's got a root number of 4. And this is 1/16. We go one stage further, 0.0625 divided by 2, which equals 0.03125, which equals, if we add these together again, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1 plus 1 equals 2, put the 2 there, and this is 1/32, and we'll take the final step here and we'll go 0.03125 divided by 2 equals 0.0, I need to peek, 15625, which equals, I can tell you, if we add all these numbers together, we get 19. 1 plus 9 is 10. 1 plus 0 is 1. And we get back to 1. And this is 1/64. So these two, okay, we've produced the 1 and the 2. Maybe we don't need to worry about them because we already had the 1 and the 2, which were developed from the 3. But I can tell you that if we keep going on this dividing cycle, from this we'll get back to the 5 to the 7 to the 8 to the 4 to the 2 to the 1, and it just keeps running in a sequence. So another thing that I'll flash up and throw up on the screen is that if we also look at the fractions, the half, quarter, eighth, 16th and so on, we look at the bottom number 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, and these are the sequences that we see through the lifespans in the 31 planes of existence. So just throwing that in there. But also what it means is when the 1 and the 2 divided up together, what they did is they first created the 5, then they created the 7, then they created the 8, then they created the 4, then they created the 2. Yeah, so this is one of the reasons why we continue with the 2 and the 1, because this created the 2, but it wasn't the normal 2 which had already been created by the 1 and the 2. This was the 11. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So this is the 2 here, and then the 1 here is the 10, because this gave us 19. 1 plus 9 equals 10. So we put the 10 there, and what we've basically got, the 1 and the 2 already created, put them in there, and then all we're missing is the 3 and the 9, and the 3 is obviously the parent, the prior generation of the original 1 and 2 that came down to settle, and the 9 is the prior generation of the 3 and the 6, and that is the creation of time and space.